Hello, and welcome to another Wednesday where we have a yap about Tinto talks. And, yeah, the subject matter of today's Dev Diary. We heard last week that it was going to be something completely new. Not something that we have seen in EU4 before. And, well, the image is right there, right? You can see what the image is. You can see what it is we're about to be talking about. Yes, it is, in fact, slavery. Slavery is the topic. So, it's an entirely secret, unannounced game. The Codename Project Caesar. Yes, yes. It feels kind of weird to go from somber, oh yeah, the Dev Diary is about slavery too. We'll spill information about the entirely secret, unannounced game. Well, how does slavery work in EU5? One of the 6 pop types is slaves. These lack pretty much every right in all countries and are simply exploited. They're not allowed to move around on their own. They have harsh enough lives that they're basically only keeping the current population levels at the best of times. And they have absolutely no income or any political power. If they get any sort of literacy, they're likely to be rather upset. At the start of the game, the usage of slaves is mostly gone from Europe, but it's more prevalent in other parts of the world. So in Cairo, there are 5,000 Circassian Orthodox slaves. I would not have known that. In Circassia, like in the the Caucasian mountains, Caucasus Mountains. Oh, that's surprising to me, but okay. The usage of slaves. Slaves are primarily used in resource gathering operations, but they can also be used in various buildings. These types of buildings can be categorized into 2 types of buildings. First, there are the slave soldier buildings that require slaves to function and produce manpower or sailors. These include buildings like the Mamluk or Janissary barracks that provide part of the armies of the Mamluks and the Ottomans. The second category of buildings are the plantations. These are buildings that you can unlock from the Age of Discovery advances. There are 3 types of plantations for sugar, tobacco, and cotton. These are far more productive than the RGO for the same goods, but require slaves to function. Okay, plantations in EU4 just got a whole different kind of context, you know? Okay, just my thoughts on this are, what happens when I make slavery illegal? The plantations... Surely I'd be able to not just, like, demolish the building and then build something else in its place, because that's not how it worked in real life. Like, the buildings, for the most part, weren't torn down and torched by angry mobs or the state. They were repurposed. It would be nice if, when I eventually ban the practice of slavery in my country, these plantations could be repurposed into different types of buildings, you know? Something like, you know, when you pass the law to ban slavery, all plantations will be converted into X building, right, instead. But anyway, we have the galley barracks in Genoa. Provides the following effect to Genoa. It gets sailors, can build ships here. It doesn't say anything here about... Oh, wait, no. Slaves. Slaves are a trade good. Slaves are, in fact, a trade good now. I was not expecting that to be the case. That is surprising to me. This is a unique building to get you a lot of sailors. Of course, there are other uses for slaves. In some religions, you need a steady stream of them to sacrifice daily to make the sun go up the next day. That... I understand that this is something that the Aztec did, but I don't know. I feel like making light of it is... I mean, it's probably fine. I'm just kind of trying to dance around the heavy topic here, because otherwise YouTube will slap me. But yeah, no, bit of levity there, because why not? Acquiring slaves. There are multiple ways to get them. First of all, you have the classic way of conquering nearby nations or territories and enslaving part of the population as you sack their cities. It's something that, as diverse cultures, amongst others, the Haudenosaunee, Aztec, and Kanem Empire can do from the start. They also get easy access to Casus Belli to go on slave-raiding wars. I think we did see, when we were talking about Casus Belli's, that the Aztec have flower wars as a CB. As you sack a city, a percentage of the population will become slaves and appear in the closest slave market that you have, and if none of them is near enough, then to the closest slave market nearby. Secondly, we have the Berber states, who engaged in slave raiding from the sea. In EU4, this was a button you clicked on your ships when they were near a coast that had no slave raiding cooldown active. In Project Caesar, this ability is part of the privateering mechanic, and that if you have access to this ability, then your privateers will raid a random coastal location in the area they're in, and take some of the pops as slaves to the closest slave market. This is stopped by having a truce over 100 opinion, or a good old coastal fortress. This is an interesting one, for sure. Nothing in here about having an ally, so that is another thing that we're really unsure on how it works. Like, what do alliances look like in Project Caesar? For sure, that is interesting. Also, why is EU4 relevant? Is that because this is a sequel? Probably. Okay, thing that I'm a little bit curious of. Privateers will raid a coastal location that they are in the area of. And this is what an area looks like. The Mediterranean, you got the Western Med here, which is probably going all the way to Gibraltar. Eastern Med going all the way to either the Aegean or Constantinople itself. These are really large areas. Are we sending privateers on a go raid the Mediterranean, or the Western Mediterranean, and then it's not actual physical locations of ships? I don't have to be in this tile to raid these locations, or this tile. It's just I'm in here somewhat nebulously, somewhat, non-pin-downable. Nailed that. It's a little bit interesting. Maybe something to think about. But anyway, coastal raiding can hire privateers. They'll raid for slaves. And yeah, that is one of the countries that can do it from day one. Morocco. Okay. Thirdly, you have the slave market building. While it acts as a hub for slave trades, it'll also try to enslave pops of non-accepted cultures and different religious groups. This is to simulate how the Delhi Sultanate and others enslave people in their conquered lands over time. So you've got a level 2 slave market in Kanauj. Employs 400 burghers. We've got leather, metalworking, simple tools, paper, and slaves to make more slaves. You get 40 monthly enslavement. Current level and max level. Okay. It all adds up over time indeed. Fourthly, you have the possibility to build slave centers in foreign locations that have less power projection than you. This is to simulate how a part of how the Europeans got their slaves from West Africa to the New World. While a significant part of slaves were bought from other African kingdoms that were willing to sell slaves taken from their enemies, they were also locally captured by the slavers themselves near the slaving centers. If you wish to fight this in your territories, you need to go to war and forcefully expel them. Okay. I feel like going to war to stop this is probably... I'm not sure about that one. Like, if, for example, France had a slave center in Benin, and Benin wanted to get rid of that slave center, they're going to have to go to war with France, rather than just burning down the slave center, killing people in there. Maybe these kinds of war goals will be quite quick to piece out. France would be able to keep it if they really pushed for it. But it's also, if they don't really push for it and don't send troops down there, then it's going to be something that the Benin player will be able to piece out relatively easily. Because otherwise I am just imagining a situation where I'm playing Benin, France has built a slave center in my land, I go to war with France, and I can never get up the war score high enough to, get France to say, okay, we'll stop, and instead you're going to be in a war for a long time. How much war score am I going to get for, I don't know, burning down the slave center? And if France never sends any troops down, how long is it going to be until I can peace out of that war? I don't know. That's what I'm a little bit worried about. Finally, you can trade for slaves. In Project Caesar, slaves exist both as a type of goods and a type of pop, and they're slightly linked. Buildings can produce slave goods and require slave goods as input. We saw that already. When a slave good is traded between markets, the game will also move pops in relative sizes to locations that have a demand for slaves. Thus, if you have buildings or resource gathering operations that can use slaves, they'll create a demand for slaves in the market, and if you trade from a market that both produces slave goods and has enough slaves present, the game will move about 200 pops from the slave market each month for each good you trade. Okay. That's interesting. I don't think many people were expecting that. Obviously, in EU4, slaves were a trade good. There were no pops, so they were just simply a trade good, and that was not good enough. Victoria 3 came out and was like, we're going to model every single person from, up top to down bottom, slaves, every single one is going to be represented. No, they're not slave goods. And now EU5 is maybe seeing some issues with that, and it's kind of trying to split the difference. I'm kind of fine with that, because while obviously today's sensibilities, people ain't goods. They're just not. But 1337, all the way up until when slavery was made illegal in whichever country it ended up being, there's lots of different countries. They were. So either you go with modern sensibilities, or you kind of try and emulate the reasons why countries engaged in this act that we now find abhorrent. It's like I say, it's a tough topic. It is a tough topic. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how this system interacts. Maybe it is simply the best way of representing how these people were seen, viewed, treated, used in the period. They were, according to the people of the period, they were goods. According to us now, they were people. So, is it right to split the difference? We'll have to see how it works, but I don't see an inherent problem with it. I'm pretty sure some people will, though. But anyway, at the start of the game, there is the Trans-Saharan trade, where North African countries import slaves from West Africa, many sold by the Kanem Empire. Later on, during the Age of Discovery, you'll see the triangular trade between Europe, West Africa, and the Americas, which will reduce the Trans-Saharan trade volumes. There's also another market system, as the Mongol states have access to taking slaves when conquering land, and they created the greatest slaving trade network the world's ever seen. I'm not sure greatest is the word I would specifically use. Largest, or most voluminous. Greatest, probably not the word I'd use. Since Muslim states could not keep Muslim slaves and Christians did not want Christian slaves, the Mongols traded the Muslims to the Christians and the Christians to the Muslim countries. The trade links from India goes to Central Asia, as well as Delhi trades their slaves to other markets, while they get the slaves they require for their Mamluk-style armies. Next week, we're looking at great powers and hegemonies. Okay, hopefully this is more in-depth than in EU4, because in EU4, these kind of feel a bit meh. Alright, what do I think about slaves? What a fucking sentence. Oh, Christ. Like I said, it's a heavy topic. The game obviously had to have slavery in it. It's a game that covers the period where the triangle trade was active, the Barbary pirates were active, the Mongols, Delhi, all of that. It had to have slaves in some sense, and it had to be done in a way that wasn't, minimizing it. It had to be done in a way that wasn't glorifying it, but also had to be done in a way that states would want to do it, right? Because there had to be some profit, otherwise it wouldn't be done. You know, the racism came after the slavery, rather than enslaving because of racism, right? So I know I'm gonna get pushback for that. Whatever. I I think it's done as well as it possibly could be. You know, it's going to take a little bit to get used to have slaves be pops and trade goods. Um, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm just yeah. Only things I want to know the answer to is if I ban slavery, what happens to my plantations, and what are the effects and impacts on the abolition of slavery, right? If you do that in the game, what are the effects? What happens to my slave pops? What happens to my slave goods? Do they all go away? Does his building just like disappear into the ether? Can it not be utilized for something else? That kind of way. Can I convert it into another building, for example? But yeah, those are my thoughts. I would like to know yours. Let me know in the comment section below. And if you want to help me out and keep up to date with everything coming out of Tinto with Project Caesar, then hit the subscribe button. One more thing before I leave you, there was a very interesting comment that was posted yesterday after the video that I bloody made. About half an hour after that went live, there was another comment made, and that is this one: no countries will have country-specific mission trees at release. None. Zero. Not. It's not happening. It's not the type of content they are focused on for Project Caesar. That is a bombshell of comment, and I'm sure it will be talked about quite a bit. So yeah, until next time, where we're going to be looking at Japan and Korea in Friday's Tinto maps. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.